We're a month ahead of, no, a week ahead of the elections, and we found ourselves in a demonstration, which may or may not be a good thing. Let's see. Okay, hey, I'm Ryan.
And I'm Fabio, and together we are the Fabryk.
So in this video, we're going to be talking about how we spent 3 months in Georgia and what we learned about it. The reason why we went to Georgia, I actually planted the seed. I had been there in 2016 and I loved it so much that I decided at some point I want to go back and spend at least a month there. So this was the time. We took a Caucasus trip. We went to Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, and we spent the majority of our time in Georgia.
Yeah, I was very curious to visit the Caucasus, and I've heard good things about Georgia. Here we are.
Okay, so today we're sharing our experience after spending 3 incredible months in Georgia.
This country surprised us in a way we never expected. From mouth-watering food to deep cultural insights, it's a land of contrast that left a lasting impression. Georgia may be small, but its diversity of experience is astonishing. Let's start with nature. The Tusheti region feels like stepping into a postcard. Remote, pristine, and breathtaking, it's a haven for hikers and adventurers. Then there's Tel Aviv, not to be confused with Tel Aviv in Israel. This small town is surrounded by vineyards, ancient monasteries, and a charm that feels like the heart of Georgian history. And Kutaisi, once known as Colchis, the legendary land of Jason and the Argonauts, with bustling markets and fascinating historical sites. It immerses you in Georgia's deep past.
Then there's the capital city of Tbilisi. This is the city where this old meets new. You have a city where you have medieval architecture, but you also have this dynamic, creative, modern vibe as well. So, for instance, there's this one place called Fabryk, which is an old sewing factory. It's now turned into this cultural hotspot. They revitalized it and made it into something new with tons of bars and cafes. It's very, very cool. If you want something completely different, head across the country to the Black Sea, to Batumi. This is the second biggest city in Georgia, and it's a seaside city, so it has that seaside vibe, but it also feels very futuristic. You have the tallest buildings in Georgia there, and you have coastal relaxation. You have a lively boardwalk or promenade that stretches all the way the length of the city, and you have a lot of energy of the Black Sea. From a tourist perspective, Georgia really has it all, and that's probably why it's growing so much in tourism. It just has this stunning nature, you have this deep history, and you really have some vibrant city life as well.
Now let's talk about food.
And wine. So Georgia is one of those countries that's becoming more and more known for its food around the world. You'll see Georgian restaurants in places like LA, New York. We have a few in Berlin as well. Let's talk about the cuisine. We're gonna make another video on this one, so we won't go into too much detail, but let's talk about the basics. The first one that you'll probably have heard of a lot, it's called Khachapuri. My pronunciation on it.
Right?
I think so. I think the KH is supposed to go
something like that.
I think you're just Khachapuri. Georgians, if you're watching, try to please correct my pronunciation. But this is basically a cheesy bread. It comes in a lot of different regional varieties too, and I think we've had just about every single one of them, and it's really dangerous and addictive. Okay. So this is what you have to do with this Khachapuri. It has egg and butter, and you just have to mix it all around. Mix it up until it all melts together and it's ooey gooey. And I remember I used to eat this before and I didn't do that because I didn't know, and it was kind of weird, but now that I know the way, it's much better. And yeah, this is a specialty in Batumi because it's like Algerian style. There's also khinkali, also KH. These are soup dumplings. They're quite big and you have a very specific way of eating them.
Yeah, you have to kiss them.
Kiss the dumpling.
And kiss the sauce out of it.
Yes. Outside of those are the most famous ones that you're going to hear a lot about, but you also have really awesome gems. There's one called Chikmaruli, which we discovered when we first got into Georgia. It's this big creamy garlic chicken dish. What did you think of it?
Well, that's a bit heavy.
Yeah.
We have to admit Georgian food is rich, but a bit heavy. After a while, we found ourselves craving lighter meals to balance it out.
There's another one called kharcho, which is a soup.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
That when it's pureed with walnuts, it makes it this really creamy, kind of tomato pepper based soup, and that one is fabulous. One of my favorites is called ochakori. This is this sizzling dish where you have potatoes, most likely pork as well, all together roasting in one another's fats and oils, and it's just really packed with flavor. And the wine. Not forget the wine. Georgia is considered the birthplace of wine. With 8,000 years of history and tradition, they use this specific technique where they have a clay kveri, it's called, and they actually ferment it under the ground, because under the ground it has a stable temperature throughout the year. Anyway, every sip you're going to take of the Georgian wine, it's going to connect you with the ancient history, and it's really quite nice, especially when you go to some of the wine towns like Signalgi and Talavi and Khachapuri region. Okay, so let's go into some of the cultural insights that we gained from being there in 3 months' time.
Yeah, religion is central to life here, we discovered. The Georgian Orthodox Church is a cornerstone of their identity. People cross themselves when passing churches, even teenagers. It's a fascinating sight. Georgia was one of the first countries to adopt Christianity in the 1st century. Legend says Saint Nino herself planted the first cross. Visiting places like the main cathedral in Tbilisi and Bodbe Monastery really connects you to that history. However, the church's influence can be a double-edged sword, unifying the country but also slowing social progress.
Yeah. Okay, we've made it to Vartsia. This is a monastery which is made just throughout the caves, isn't it? It's like a cavernous monastery with 19 tiers. It's made in 12th century. One thing that we particularly noticed about the culture is just how hospitable the people are. It stands out from a lot of countries that we've been to, even though a lot of countries are hospitable, but Georgia in particular. So this one time, for example, we were staying at a guest house and the woman gave us coffee. And then 5 minutes later, she's like, oh, let's have some cha-cha as well. And she's breaking out this cha-cha. Cha-cha is the really, really strong liquor that's made from the remnants of the grapes. And all of a sudden, we're just drinking cha-cha with this family.
Yeah, all of a sudden we're drunk.
Yeah, drunk and a little bit like caffeinated as well. So it was a really nice vibe. But Georgians are also really fiercely proud as well, almost in like a stubborn way. As you'll see from the Mother of Georgia statue in Tbilisi, she's really embodying their warmth and resilience. And when you have a country like Russia next door, who's being a big ass bully, they have to maintain their pride and unity as a country.
Politics and LGBTQ plus life in Georgia. Georgia's political landscape is complicated.
Yes, this is a big one. When you're there, you'll feel the tensions and you'll see some of the demonstrations and protests, particularly in Tbilisi. Basically, in a nutshell, Georgia has had the parliamentary majority with this party called the Georgian Dream for well over a decade now. And while they used to be quite pro-EU, they've recently changed a lot of their sentiments and they're leaning towards Russia. There was a recent election in Georgia in October, and once again, the parliamentary majority is still with the Georgian Dream. There was a lot of evidence that the election was actually rigged. So there's still protests going on to this day about this. And now the dream of joining the EU is becoming more of kind of a distant dream. It feels increasingly distant, but as we mentioned, the resilience of the Georgians have led to a lot of different protests to hopefully challenge this reality. For the LGBTQ plus community, it's a really interesting place because, okay, the Georgian Dream voted on this anti-LGBTQ plus law in 2024. there's recently a bit more resistance from the government towards progression in this sphere. Then you also have a bunch of these safe spaces too. So you have places like Bassiani and Test, which have these LGBTQ plus focused nights, nightlife. It's a very conservative society, but then, you know, you have these underground places that act as safe spaces for freedom of self-expression. But hopefully this continues to progress and not regress.
Here we are at Bassiani behind, and yeah, this is the most famous club of Tbilisi, Georgia, and probably Caucasus.
It's a bit of a safe haven for the LGBTQI plus community. It says Decade of Memories. So this place has been around for 10 years. And let's hope that they survive these places.
Yeah. Did we like it?
I really like it. I think it gives off a very Berlin vibe as well. It feels like how Berlin might have been like 10 years ago or something, maybe even more.
Yeah.
So old-time Berlin. Very edgy vibes, very dark.
Very
a
dark.
Bit too dark.
Too dark for me. It's a bit too dark. I mean, we went on the night before Halloween, so maybe that was the theme. And yeah, you feel like you're in Berlin once inside.
John, this language that we love.
I think it's really cool. It's this cool script of 33 different letters that's from the 7th century BC, potentially. It's potentially 15 centuries old.
Yeah, they even have a tower in Batumi, which is the alphabet tower. It's really cool.
Yeah, it kind of pays homage to the script, so it has the letters all around the outside of it. So this language is really interesting because it's like a Sakartvelo language. There's no other languages around, so Armenian or Azerbaijani, they're not similar in any sense. It's one of those languages that's really hard to pronounce and also learn, but like any country that you go to, it's important to learn a few little phrases, so...
Well, hello, which is Gamarjapa. Gamarjas is the cheers to victory. And we know 1, 2, 3 because of the famous song, the popular song currently, which is Erzi Orisami.
Malo, which is thank you. And also Ludi is beer, so that's important. And then all of the food names, of course. I guess with the language, what's really, when you're there in Georgia, you have a lot of people speaking Russian because it's a former Soviet country, but a lot of the younger people are quite like adverse to this idea. They don't really want to speak Russian and they might not know it to fluency.
Yeah, they don't teach it in school anymore.
Yeah, true. But it's really funny because you go into a store or a restaurant or something and oftentimes you'll hear a waiter or waitress like speaking Russian, Georgian, and English. Yeah, basically all three of these languages spoken quite interchangeably in the country. But you won't find a lot of Cyrillics. They basically like removed a lot of those, and a lot of things are either in Georgian script or Latin scripts. Our lovely guest house lady who we can't communicate with gave us little bellinis. They're little pancakes. They look really good. Let's have one. That was Georgia. That was 3 months of being in Georgia. We obviously learned a lot more, but we just wanted to give you the basics of some of the things that we've learned. We hope that this has inspired you to go to Georgia and find out what this country is all really about. It's a beautiful place, and you shouldn't let the politics and location dissuade you from going.
Thanks for watching if you watched so far, and yeah, if you like, please subscribe.